Welcome, everybody, to another episode. I'm your host, Dr. Calvin Ng. I'm joined here with Philipp von Holtzendorff-Fehling. Hopefully, I said that right. Long name. I love it. And he's the founder and CEO of Leela Quantum Tech and Quantum Upgrade, companies that focus on quantum energy, wellness products. He's also previously held executive roles at T-Mobile and served as VP there. However, he has made a shift in pursuing his training and career in energy healing and shamanic practices, past life regression, all things energy work. He also practices Kundalini yoga. He's a father. I know he has a cute dog too that I was super obsessed with at the conference we met at. And he's also plays tennis at a very high level as well. So very involved and also world traveler. He's going into conferences and you will probably meet him if you go to biohacker conferences because that's where he's at. So welcome, Philip. Thank you for joining us. And I'm really excited about talking with you because you're somebody in the space that understands heavily on energy, frequency, vibration. And that's exactly the type of medicine, the type of healthcare that I subscribe to, that I practice myself, that I get treated with. And we call it frequency medicine and kinesiology, applied kinesiology, right? Love all of that. And I love the quote from Albert Einstein that basically says, the future of medicine is all going to be about frequencies, which is energy, right? So that's what you're doing now. That's your passion. How did you get here? How did you get into Leela Quantum? How did this came to be and into the frequency and energy space?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to speak with you here, and it was great to meet you at that conference. So, how did I get into this? So, that was in the early 2000s. I was in corporate, and I had noticed at some point, actually in a management seminar, that I was cut off my own emotions and feelings. I discredited the intuition in others. And the reason I did that is that I discredited the intuition in myself. So I did not have a place because I was completely in my head, very brain focused and rational. And I realized that there's a part of me that I didn't invite in. But I didn't know what to do with that. It was noticed that then and was made aware of it, but I couldn't make any changes. So then I started to and feel, what can I do? So I got into meditation, I got into yoga, I started reading about these things. Then I got really curious and I suddenly found myself getting trained in various energy healing techniques and past life regression work, shamanic practices. And while I was doing that, I realized I was healing myself by doing that. And I noticed significant shifts. I noticed how I opened up more. I noticed how my perception suddenly got better. I noticed that I could feel myself better and I was inviting all this in. And that wasn't always easy, to be honest, because on one hand, there's all these doubts. Well, now you're dealing with energy and all of that. And as a very left brain person, you're having a lot of doubts. And then at the same time, also stuff comes up, right? So that's something, once we start digging in, we hit traumas, we hit difficulties, energetic blockages and all of that. And so that wasn't very easy. And then I met my wife at the time, at 2005. We're now separated since a little over a year, but she was born with the ability to see aura and energy fields. That catapulted me into the next phase of it because now I was living literally with someone that the unseen was the complete normality for. So then it got further. Then she was actually diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease in 2010, and she was doing really bad. And certainly she had her own ability, but the problem always is if you're a healer or you're very aware, you can help other people in an amazing fashion, but you also need help because it's always the hardest to help yourself in that regard if it comes to healing and fixing things. So for me, it was always about finding the next best stuff that could help her. And that sparked the passion in me to get into biohacking and bioenergy hacking. So that's how it all came together and ultimately led to the development and to my vision that I had in regards to Leela Quantum Tech and Quantum Upgrade. And long story short, also with her, she does not have chronic Lyme disease anymore. It's completely healed. There's no symptoms left, no nothing. And yeah, That's pretty much the story.
Yeah, she's a trip. I actually got to meet her and had a aura reading session with her, which is amazing. And I feel like when I sat down with her and then she's like, would you like me to take a look?" And I said, "Sure, I've never done this before." And she tilted her head and looked at me, and I felt like as if I felt so naked because I felt as if she looked right through me into my soul. I mean, it was the weirdest experience, but it was so fascinating, and she's very intuitive. So I'm glad she's doing well.
Yeah, so she's doing great, and we're still great friends also. But yeah, that's it. So because what you're saying is look right through to you into your soul, and that's exactly what she's doing. And now you can imagine how that is for someone when you marry someone like that in the beginning, and you're not like that she always sees everything.
You can't hide everything.
It was tough in between, certainly, but also amazing.
She can predict the future in a sense, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. Now, on that, for people who can see that, aura is essentially light, right? And light is energy. It's what we're projecting out. So, and I guess this is a good segue to kind of go into quantum energy and its relevance to, our health and wellness, who we are and what we do, I guess maybe even our purpose in life. How does one explain that?
I usually try to find a non-scientific answer to that because most people are not there. It would get over their head. And then what does that yield? So to me, it's something you can feel if you just close your eyes and then you feel at some point, if you're feeling to be present in your body, you feel an energy there. Then if you expand beyond your physical body, you can still feel energy. That may take a little bit of practice for some people, but it goes relatively quick. It's a muscle that we can turn on relatively quickly. And that is that energy. It's the same energy that vibrates in each of our cells. It's the quantum energy. It's also behind every matter. It's the energy behind the matter. That's how I explain it. It can be felt literally, and it can be accessed. We can always access the quantum field. And the physical body is on a physical level over 99% water on a molecular weight level. Now, do we run around in our lives and are aware of that? Not really, right? I mean, when I drive my car, I perceive myself as solid, right? And that's how most people perceive themselves. Yet we are mainly water. Isn't that crazy? But then, if we add the space to it, we're over 99% space. Now, that space isn't empty. It's filled with energy, with quantum energy. So quantum energy is sort of the base layer of existence, the base layer of energy. Call it the umbrella in which all frequencies exist. So all frequencies that we can access, that are available, they exist within the quantum field. Now, we have found a method on how to harness and super concentrate this quantum energy so we can make it available in this reality in a way never done before, and that's not really correct because it's certainly been done before by some amazing scientists in the past and maybe also in ancient times. But in recent history, modern history, that wasn't really available to us, and it's now coming back to the surface. And if we work with this super concentrated quantum energy, we can promote very positive changes because it's essential to life. It is something that is always uplifting. It's never going to drag you down because it's just our inherent life energy. And then we can combine it with specific frequencies. That's where the frequency medicine comes into place. And certainly frequency medicine can be practiced in many different ways, right? Because there's so many different frequencies. You have sound frequencies, you have rife frequencies. Now, then we have electromagnetic frequencies, right? Those are the ones that are, if they're non-native, we should be quite careful with. 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, etc. We may get into that. Then you have etheric frequencies that you can literally pull out of the ether, and then you can have molecular frequencies. So molecular frequencies would be derived from a physical substance. Let's say your favorite healing plant, because everything has a vibration. And with our technology, we can not only copy any such frequencies and put it into any object and make it available, we can also press it into different products so that, we have this, capsule, for example, with this so-called heal-360 frequency, right? That's a capsule and it contains quantum energy and these frequencies. And if you wear it, it has a field that offers these beneficial frequencies to your biofield. And because we are energy and frequency to begin with, we can interact with that. And we don't need to ingest something in order to interact with that frequency. That's the frequency medicine. And it's quite powerful and it's quite amazing and it's non-invasive. So I find indeed that this has more of a place now than it had in the past. And in the future, it will be even more recognized and it will certainly play a role in medicine overall.
Yeah. And then I love that you get into that, and I love that, we're talking about this. And then now I came from a place where, I did not ever believe in things that I could not see, touch, feel, right? And I remember growing up, my mom was very spiritual, and she would make me do stuff and superstitious and all that type of stuff. And at one point when I was a teenager, being rebellious, I was just telling her, look, there's no science, there's no studies, there's no research to back whatever woo-woo thing that you're doing. And so I'm not going to engage with it. I'm not going to do it, and I said it in a way that's probably a lot ruder than how I'm displaying now. But, me being naive and me being young and, leveraging on my left brain, that's what I believed. And I became, hardcore, like atheist, very material, just everything needed to be mechanical, the mechanistic point of view, right? So anyways, I was definitely humbled by that because my dad went through a healing crisis or a health crisis, and he actually got into the hospital after he had cirrhosis and had sepsis, basically multiple organ failure. And like I got to watch all of that, and I never experienced that type of trauma in my life before. And for the first time in my life, like I prayed to God, and miraculously, the next day, his health started turning around. Right after the doctor called, right? I still remember. I was in my bed. We came home from visiting him. This was at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. He was in the top hospital in California, right? In the ICU. They call me and they go, it's down to these last 24 hours, so you guys better prepare yourself. Like
Uh-huh.
that's a wild call. And from there, I like broke down. And then my mom broke down. My mom is like such a strong person, right? To me, growing up, she's such a strong person, and she was crying and basically saying, we're gonna have to prepare to like live with just us three, like me, my sister, and my mom. And then I go, oh my gosh, I never seen that side of my mom before. Like just that vulnerability, right? And I felt I don't know, I felt something opened up in my body. And that night, I prayed to God, and I prayed hard. And then the next day, literally the next day, he started turning around. Like his vitals started getting better. They were saying that, oh my gosh, like this is getting better. This is getting better. His bowels are moving. He's slowly coming back. And the next few days, he was recovering and then gaining consciousness. It was the wildest thing. So after that event, I just go, there's things that are beyond me that and I feel like people always feel it. Like you said, it's around us. We feel it. We feel that there's something there. We just don't know much about it. And I think that sometimes people might fear what they don't know, or they just kind of block that out. But anyways, very interesting how you described like the energy around us, that it's always there. It's always working for us, right? And I'm curious as to know, because my left brain, I kind of go like, how does that all work? And especially for you putting it in a capsule, which is like a little necklace pendant that you can wear or put in your pocket. that has titanium balls in it, or putting it in like a water bottle. Like I have your guys' water bottle right here. I love this, by the way. It is, I could definitely feel a difference because I have a water structure machine and I love that. But when I put it in this bottle, I could definitely feel that it hits differently, it absorbs differently, it feels different. And then I also have the quantum blocks, right? The super quantum block. I have an infinity block at my practice in the clinic that I use, that I try to like experiment and do different things with it. How does that all work? How does that energy like get infused or get put into these products?
So first of all, amazing story, and I'm happy for you that it turned around and that you found your path through that moment, right? So that's incredible how the universe works, right? And so sometimes it's our own pain that is the soul speaking through that pain to us and trying to make us aware of things, and sometimes it comes through others in a way to help us steer in the right direction. So that's very powerful. Now, by the way, for the listeners, bear with us because we'll also get into the hardcore science, right? So that's very important because what we're going to be talking about, and that's one of the fun things why I love what we're doing here, is because we get to prove a lot of the unseen. And that is fascinating to me in a way. So the only thing that I cannot share is how we do the initial charging process, because that's really how that was the nut to crack for us. That took us a long time, and that's our secret sauce that we figured out. But we make the extension of our technology available in form of these blocks that you described, and then people can literally experience these super concentrated quantum fields. It's actually, in terms of a block, it's really a multidimensional quantum space that is made available. And that is like a magnetic force field, right? I mean, it's comparable at least. So if you have two magnets, at some point they attract each other and you feel that field, or it's the opposite and you also feel that field. Now with the blocks, it's the same thing. It's just not a magnetic force, it's a quantum energy force. It has to be aligned in a certain way, and then within that you have this super vibration of quantum energy. And if you then access that somehow, whether you put water inside, then the water structures and it gets optimized relatively quickly, actually. And then if you put your hands inside, or your feet or whatever, suddenly it has a positive impact on the blood, as has been shown in multiple sham-controlled blinded studies, on the red blood cells, on the white blood cell activity and motility. It can even improve cellular function, and it can improve ATP production. It can do so many things. And why is that the case? Because you wonder, well, it's not physical. Yeah, because it's not physical, it's a super dense concentrated quantum energy space or field. When you tap into that, your own biofield gets strengthened pretty much instantly. And then so when that happens, suddenly we can also do that on a physical level. So that's one of the things that I was like you, when I was young, I didn't believe in any of this. And frankly, I would have not even guessed I would end up where I'm now at that time. But the advantage of having been at that spot compared to someone that is born with the ability to always see that is, you realize how it is for others and how it is really for most people out there still that have completely forgotten their fundamental nature. The fundamental nature is not that we're rational meat bags. That's really not what we are. That's what we have available to us, but we are the energy within that. We are energy and frequency at core. And that's something to remember again. And once we do that, all of these other things become very, very clear. If I then interact with energy and with frequencies, of course, it has influence on my biofield, and then things can get into place, because if you can harmonize something on the most fundamental layer, it can ripple through into the physical. And that's what we're seeing in all those studies that have been performed, for example.
Yeah, the studies are very interesting. I believe that there's probably, I don't know, there's hundreds of companies and different products out there, services and whatnot, that are geared towards like EMF harmonizing, EMF blocking, etc., right? Helping you harmonize like your own energy field. So I know that there's plenty of products out there that are, people in this space, but you're one of those that really put the money where your mouth is and go, well, let's test it. Let's study it. Let's put it through like even placebo controlled trials to really show and prove the benefits and the effects of what your products are doing. So you mentioned the ATP production, right? And I believe that's a study where people essentially just putting their hand in one of the blocks increases ATP, and looking at dark field microscopy, where you look at, okay, red blood cells, white blood cells, right? How they move, how they clump together under the influence of electromagnetic fields, and seeing changes in that. Could you share with us some like the exciting findings of these studies?
Yes, absolutely. So, as any company, when you're relatively small and you just get started, you start with simple things. And that's years ago, that's how we started, with simple before and after testing. We kind of knew what it does and what the products do, but then we needed to provide proof because we knew most people out there, they want to see the science, and you need to, if you come out with products and you want to make claims about what they do, you need to back it up, right? And so that was very clear to me early on. So we started giving our products to certain doctors' offices, and then they started with dark field microscopy. And each time they saw that it improved the blood significantly. And we'll get into that. But then there were some people out there that said, well, yeah, but these are just before and after tests. This could be placebo controlled. And I had to admit, yes, you're right. We need to get better at studying this. So then we moved into placebo-controlled studies, and the way that is done with physical devices is that you use a sham-controlled method, where you have one device that actually works and one device that looks like it, and it's a sham device. And then you need to do it blinded so that there can't be a placebo, so the test person couldn't know which device they're getting, for example, or what's even happening. So they found that when they tested the people in these studies before test without any Wi-Fi involved, so Wi-Fi free environment, that they had a baseline blood situation, right? It was never great, but it was also usually not terrible, except for like this one 64-year-old cancer patient that was tested at some point. He had a very terrible blood to begin with. So then they turned on Wi-Fi, and then within 10 minutes, you could see blood clotting in a really crazy fashion, so that when I show these pictures, even people that have never seen a dark field microscopy picture, they would be like, my God, that looks terrible. And that's exactly what it looks like. That's stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting that you see. You see that white blood cell tend to get paralyzed by Wi-Fi. And then when you leave the Wi-Fi on and you turn on our technology, in this case, it was done with the blocks in these early studies, you see suddenly that it within minutes all reverses. And you see in most cases even that the picture is better than the before test, despite having the Wi-Fi or the 5G on, which is quite significant. You see the blood clotting go away, the white blood cell activity and motility increase. You see even parasitic load decrease. So that's something that the Base Institute in Austria found in their live blood analysis studies. There was even one patient where within 15 minutes they had a reduction of 80% in parasitic load in the blood, which is, I call that the best case scenario. I don't think it could get any better than that. That is really absolutely fascinating, but it shows the potential of what's possible. And the Base Institute did a deep dive into that, and indeed found that our technology is able to make the environment for parasites really bad and challenging. So the environment for us as the owners of the body is strengthened. And so you see indeed in these randomized double-blind studies that the parasitic load decreases. So it's indeed something that has been found over and over again. There's also a lot of interesting findings regarding the blood in regards to spike proteins. I don't want to get into that too much, but there is something there if people are interested. And that's that for the blood. In regards to cellular function, I think that that's another research area that I'm very excited about, because we're all about ATP production. Because if we don't have ATP production, we're dead, right? That's pretty much how it works. ATP, for the people that don't know what that is, it's the energy production of the human cells, and it can be physically measured. It's nothing woo-woo or intangible. You can literally measure the ATP output. And then Dr. Robert Schief at the University of Tulsa was asked if he could study this. And he said, sure, he can. He didn't believe our technology could work. He found out, oh, it does work, because it was randomized and double blind and statistically significant already in the first study. Then he said he needs to do it one more time, because he also had this one part in him that was like the rational dude saying, that can't be, even though I just saw it with my own eyes. So he did it again, same results. Then he said, okay, I'm going to run it a third time, because before we publish it, I want to make sure I cover my butt in case other scientists come and want to poke a hole in this. Then I can at least say I've done it 3 times. Guys, here's the data, look at it. And third time, same results. Then we moved on into wound healing studies with actual human cells. So let's call it cell recovery. And what they do there in these studies is there's control group and a treated group, randomized and double blind, and you scratch cells with a laser, or you can do it mechanically too, so that they're damaged. And then you wait until they're fully healed, and then you basically take timestamps, right? So, and then again, it was blinded, so they didn't know which was the group that was the treated group and which one wasn't, and that was revealed after. That's a gold standard method on how to do it scientifically, and it came out already in the first study, and then this study was repeated another 4 times, so it was 5 times total, each of them statistically significant. It showed a 46 to 100% acceleration in wound healing of these human cells, which is by itself a medical breakthrough, not only to achieve that, but then think about it, it's completely non-invasive. It's with the press of a button, and it's with a technology that every 6-year-old can use, because you can just put your hands inside. You don't need to program it. You don't need to be an expert on using it. You don't have to spend $1 million to get that device. That was quite fascinating. And I stopped there because you may want to ask some questions.
Yeah, I mean, so many. That's fascinating. I love how you brought up the parasite thing, because in my practice, it's just like one after another. When we do kinesiology testing, when we do lab testing and stool analysis and whatnot, right? You get to find that people are filled with these pathogenic loads in their body. And something that I've realized is parasites are low vibrational beings, if you will, and they will be there. They will be in your body when you are actually vibrating at a lower state, right? And that's frequency medicine right there, which is, I think that there's 3 sciences that we kind of learned in school, right? There's biology, chemistry, and then there's physics. These are like the major sciences. And most people are going to be stuck in the chemistry, the biology, the chemistry, or biochemistry route, right? That's standardized medicine, which is like, oh, here's a molecule, and then this is how it converts to another molecule, right? And what you're doing is you're diving into the physics, because physics is the bigger space. I believe it's the bigger influence on who we are, bigger influence in our biology. And then now you have a whole new study of medicine and healing called quantum biology, where people talk about, light environment, studying mitochondria, etc., and discovering how like the mitochondria almost can see things before it even happens, which is very interesting, right? Diving into that quantum space. So many tangents we can go in there too, but it's interesting to see and hear about like all these. It sounds crazy to me, but again, you cannot dispute what's being shown in data repeatedly as well. And what makes it so easy, I think, is that yeah, you can put your hand in the block. You can wear the necklace. You can drink out of the water bottle. Like I put the dog collar on my dog, or even using like you have another service called Quantum Upgrade, right? How does that work?
Yeah, so that is indeed mind-boggling. people can, before I get in there, people can try this out. So bear with us. We'll get into the science, but you can try it out. quantumupgrade.io. And if you use code Philipp15 with Philip with one L and two P and then 15, you get a 15-day free trial and see for yourself. And by the way, if you do that, there's not even a credit card needed. So we changed that process. So it's completely no strings attached. And then you get to see for yourself that it works. And this is basically a remote service where you can book in your customized quantum field. You can book it for yourself. You can have it for your pet, for your location, for your car. You can even have it for your business or for your phone. Now, whereas for your phone, you don't really need it if you have it for yourself. And that's the most powerful way to also leverage it, the so-called field for you, the quantum upgrade field for you. Now, we work with a unique identifier that we need. So, for example, when you want to use it, then you sign up and then we ask you for your unique identifier, which would be your full name, your birth date, your birth city, and then the country you live in. That identifies you clearly. Even a John Smith would be identified clearly through that. Now that data set is placed into our system, and then via quantum entanglement, you are in the field as of that moment. It's not that the energy gets sent to you like through whatever to Australia and back, and then you get the energy. No, that's not how it works. You're literally in the field. It's quantum entanglement. And by the way, I don't know if people know that, but in 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics was awarded for work on quantum entanglement. Now, I believe that work isn't really the real deal. It's way more exciting if you can work with the real deal and not just some theoretical models. But it's cool because it came more into the public consciousness, right? That this stuff is real. Quantum entanglement is not just some fantasy, and now we can actually prove it. That's pretty much how it works. You're then in the field, but you are 100% in control, because on your laptop or on your phone, you can say, okay, I want higher energy, I want lower energy, I want to book in specific frequencies that we make available, and you decide, right? At any point in time, you can decide what you want, how strong you want it, and you can even pause it at any time, so you're 100% in control. And so that's fascinating. And the studies I just referred to, the dark field microscopy studies, they were done initially with our physical products, but then they were also done with the quantum upgrades in a randomized double-blind fashion. Dr. Robert Schieff's studies at the University of Tulsa were all done with the quantum entanglement service quantum upgrade. We have more, right? It's fascinating. It's not random. It works 100% of the cases.
How do you explain quantum entanglement?
Yep. So it's a great question, because a lot of people get that wrong. And even in mainstream quantum physics, you find a lot of people that always talk about particle entanglement and all of that, and they sort of put out this narrative and believe that the particle is the smallest thing, which is incorrect. It's not true. Matter is never the smallest thing. It's always the energy. It's always the consciousness, because out of consciousness, matter starts to exist and matter starts to change and to transform, always out of consciousness. So energy is the lowest level and not a particle. We can entangle energies, and that is pretty much what happens. So if we have a field like this space, for example, and we place a unique identifier into that, then that source of this unique identifier, which would be you in this example, is then in the field. Now the problem with, let's say, a block, and you can do that with a block, right? So you have a block at home, you can test it, you can print out a picture of yourself and you can put it inside, and then you will literally be inside of that block energetically, and you will feel it. You can test it with kinesiology. Have a patient and you say, hey, can we do a test? You test that, and you will be able to test it each and every time. However, what you cannot do with a block, if you put two pictures in, let's say, of you and your patient, you should never do that, because you would be entangling the energies, literally, so that you're then not anymore in your own energy space on your own. You would share that energy space with someone else. You don't want that, right? So the quantum upgrade is really next level, because it certainly accounts for that everyone and everything always has basically their complete own quantum energy space, which is never connected to any other. I just wanted to mention that. And yeah,
Can you,
so
is there a consequence? Is there a negative consequence in a sense if people commingle and entangle their energies?
So here's what I would say about that. Sometimes couples do that on purpose. You should then talk about that with your partner if you want to do that. Then it can bring up stuff, maybe things you haven't talked about, maybe things that weren't communicated or emotions that were kind of buried, but that needs to come to the surface to be healed. These things can come up and it can be a beautiful experience because you get much closer. Now with if it's with some random person or with an elephant or whatever, now I don't know if you want to share the energy space with them. I wouldn't want to do that. And the analogy is really if you and I got, I don't know, we tie ourselves to the backs, right? And then we have to run around like that. You want to turn that way and I want to turn that way. So and we can't, right? So we don't like that. No one likes to be tied to someone else like that, and you don't like that energetically either. So I wouldn't say it's like negative consequences, but it can have interesting consequences. We had people in our Telegram groups, we have thousands of people there, and certainly people experimented things. And one found out at some point he was entangled with his dog for a while, and that was happening by accident. That was YouTuber Kay Elmer. He has over 6,000 followers on YouTube and puts out a lot of videos, and he had forgot his dog's hair in the blog and put his picture inside. And he realized then suddenly that he knew when the dog wanted to eat something or drink something before he would usually realize that, and all of these things. It was crazy. He reported out on that publicly, so that's why I can
Wow.
also share it. Yeah, it's quite fascinating.
I love that. Now, this also, I think for many people that are listening, they kind of go, okay, that sounds really bizarre. But what we never question in society is the quantum entanglement that happens between a mom and a child, right? And think about it. Well, the child came from mom and has been in mom for like 9 months. The energies commingle, all right? You're quantumly entangled. And I've had countless patients. This is not just like one here and there. I hear this literally all the time, and to the point where I cannot discount it anymore, because patients will come in, moms will come in, and they explain this phenomenon to me, and they go, "Am I crazy? Is this just me?" And I go, "No, 100% not. There is 100% truth to it." And my first time hearing about it was when a mom told me that she and her son was at a birthday party, and she was on the other side of the house just mingling with other parents, chatting. Her son was on the back side, right? Can't see him. It was on the other side of the house, jumping in a trampoline, and he fell out of the trampoline and hit his head on a rock, right? Bleeding. He's okay now, but he was bleeding and everything. And mom said something hit her in the gut so hard that she felt nauseous, and she could not, it just stopped her. And she went, I got to go check on my kid at that moment. And if she runs over to the back, take a look at her kid, and sure enough, that event just happened. And so that happens all the time. I have parents that will go, "Yeah, my college, my daughter or my son who's in college, something happened. They got into an accident or something, and they immediately feel something, and it doesn't matter where they are. Like, distance doesn't seem to play a factor in this. Is that right?"
Correct. Distance plays no factor in this, and the quantum entanglement with the quantum upgrade. Now, this is really an advanced system, right? It works everywhere, whether you're in Australia, New Zealand, or on some hidden island. It always works. And there's an interesting study that was done with dogs that plays and underlines exactly what you just said, where they installed hidden cameras in the homes, and then the dog owners left the house, and then they were gone and did all their thing. And then the moment the dog owner made the decision to drive back to the home and they started their journey back to the home, no matter it was 30 minutes away, 10 minutes away, you could see the behavior of the dogs change. They started to get excited. They ran around, they looked, and so they changed their behavior. So they already knew. And I saw that with our dog, Momo, at some point when our son was still little. He, at some point, we were told over phone that he's going to come back now. And then he was running home and then he was down the street, but it was maybe 300 yards away. And Momo already at some point just ran down all the stairs, like, and ran out, super happy to see Leela, our son. Well, Leela wasn't yet there. And then he was just coming. So she had felt that he's coming back. It's, yeah, you can dispute all that. But so that's all real. But people will still say, yeah, maybe I don't believe into this or it's something different. That's why we're taking all of this with the studies very seriously. And there's so many different institutes that are testing this. Now, I want to get into one more because we're almost running out of time because I have a hard stop in
Yeah,
seven
let's do it.
minutes. But the study in regards to brainwaves that was recently completed in December, it's also now available and people can read it. That was also fascinating. It was also done with a quantum upgrade. And so they tested with the strongest and most advanced EEG device on the market in Europe, brainwaves. And they also had a Wi-Fi and electromagnetic field free room where they got before tested. They got tested in a chair with a 5G iPhone 15 on the ear, about, I would say, half of an inch away from the ear. And they simulated a 30 minutes 5G call. And you could see how bad it was for the brain. And I tell you, I thought I knew a lot about 5G and all of that. I used to be a VP at T-Mobile. I don't know if I shared that with you, but I kind of know a lot about this, but I had no idea it's so bad for the brain. It literally puts all your brain waves into a box, an artificial box, and all of the stressors go up significantly. So you get into stress really with your brainwaves. You can develop headaches and all that kind of stuff. Now, then the same test situation was repeated with the quantum upgrade on. And again, we had investigators there in the study that thought our technology couldn't work. They're like, okay, I mean, over distance, right? I mean, we're happy to run the study, but that, that can't really work, right? So the lady that was operating the EEG device, she's one of the Europe's top experts in regards to EEG. Within the first minute of the quantum upgrade turning on for the very first test person, she knew we have the real deal. She was like, my God, this is really working. This is fascinating. That's a sensation. And then certainly was repeated with every test person. And the results were not just marginal. They were, as with the other studies, very significant and very, very positive. So there's a lot there. And the brainwave stuff is fascinating because you can also test mood scales, for example. And while that was also shown by another study that was with 30 women by the reputable health institute, where they found a reduction in anxiety, for example, that's something that seems to be repeating now when we look at mood scales in brain waves. Dr. Jim Hart at the Biocybernaut Institute here in the US is currently looking into that. They did a small pilot. Now, we cannot base any claims on that small pilot, but it's an indication that it seems that the quantum upgrade is also able to reduce depression and anxiety. Again, we're not making a claim here yet. It's just an indication, and it's something to dig deeper into it. But there's a lot there, and yeah, it's the data's out there, and it all shows also we're all one. In the end of the day, we're all one. So what does Ian Mitchell always say? So be kind, everyone. Be kind, because whatever we put out ripples through the field. And then also watch your own vibration, like you said, right? If we vibrate low, we invite low vibrational parasites into our bodies, and also we invite low vibrations in general into our lives. So as if we want to change our lives, yes, we can do all these great things in the outside world, but we better start changing our own frequency and clean up our own stuff inside, because when we do that, then we can really invite that in the outer world. That's how reality works.
I gotta tell you that, like, ever since I've had the blocks, the lower, it makes it very apparent what is very low in vibration in your life and causing, a lot of stress in your life that you might not be aware of, that you just kind of brush under the rug. And I'm somebody that could be good at that because I could just like go, and I don't really, kind of slow down the feel. But like, ever since having the blocks, the things that actually create stress in my life and and are causing me to have like lower vibration or just doesn't feel good, it's not good harmony, you feel that even more. And then it's like it forces you to really pay attention. And it's basically helping you shift your life in a positive way, right? And you have to act on these things. Otherwise, they're just, if you ignore them, they're just going to continuously, be like a parasite, just suck your energy, right? So I'm really fascinated about that. Man, there's so many things that I want to talk about, but I'm glad that the big thing now is that we have 5G and probably they're working on 6G, 7G, 8G, whatever, right? It's just not going to stop. It's just going to continue to be there. But let us not have any fear, right? Same thing with experimental treatments coming from medicine all the time, and technology that's advancing and chemicals that are being released, right? Things are always going to be advancing, but it's important for us to go, let us not have the fear and get sucked down to the fear. Let us find ways where we can increase our energy so that we can be more resilient to all these things. And in a sense, like, it won't matter anymore. Is that right?
Yes, I don't know who said this, but there was a quote at some point: a fool prays for an easy road, and a wise man prays for tougher legs, or something like that, right? So, I mean, that's maybe a little rough, that quote, but in a nutshell, we can strengthen ourselves, especially by raising our own vibration and consciousness to the point where all of these things do not matter for us, because they don't have place in our field if we vibrate at a certain level. And that's the fundamental thing that most people out there have not yet understood. And if they start to look into this and start to understand that, their whole world can shift. And that's the real way out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Philip. I know you got a hard stop, and thank you for your time. Maybe what we can do is even just have you on again so we can dive deeper into each individual product and we can talk about its functionality. But share with us, how can people find you? Where can people go to get information?
Sounds great. Yeah, let me know anytime. And then more information, leelaQ.com, leelaq.com would be the physical products, the quantum upgrade, quantumupgrade.io. For the ones that didn't hear it, I had given a code Philip15 with one L and two P and then 1 5 for a 15-day free trial. No strings attached, no credit card needed. Try it out for yourself. And then on these websites, you find a Telegram icon. So that may be of interest for some, where you get to a private Telegram group that you couldn't find on Telegram if you search for it. And then you find thousands of users and customers there that use these products, and they talk about it, they answer questions, and you can post a question there if you have a question. If, for example, you want to ask for a perspective for, I don't know, then talk to other people and not the founder. Don't take my word for it. There's thousands of others that can let you know what they have experienced, and maybe that's an interesting way to engage.
Absolutely. Awesome, Philip. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the wisdom. And thanks for creating awesome technology and awesome products.
Thanks so much for having me on. That was great.
Awesome.